What is the criminalization of homelessness?
Well, the criminalization of homelessness is something that really hasn't been talked about till around 20 years ago, especially in Canada. Essentially, it means is that when certain laws are being enforced or laws are being created that target the activities of homeless people. And when these laws are enforced, whether they're old laws or new laws, it can often end up punishing young people or older people, doesn't really matter, whether giving them tickets, whether arresting them, whether charging them for criminal code offenses. Basically, it's targeting usually the visibly homeless in how they're surviving usually in public spaces and sometimes private spaces, but mostly public spaces, and how the law tries to remove people who are homeless from these spaces. And these could be in everything we saw recently in Toronto when the city took down the encampments that were put up during COVID. Many people did not want to go to shelters because of COVID, so they set up camps in a variety of public parks across the city. So they were enforcing existing laws. These laws of no camping in parks, they were on the books for many years, but they were being enforced, and oftentimes they weren't enforced. So now they are being enforced. So that's one example. Another example of laws being created. Back in the year 2000 in Ontario, and not long after in British Columbia, governments put into place what were called Safe Street Acts. And these are forms of legislation. They're not criminal code violating laws. They're Highway and Traffic Act legislation. And what they do, they target people who are soliciting on roadways. They're targeting people who are panhandling, target people who panhandle in areas where they shouldn't be panhandling according to the law, bus shelters, near automatic teller machines, that sort of thing. So if people are trying to beg for money in these kinds of public places, they're subject to a fine, and the fines escalate over time. They start off, I think, around $60 or $80, and they can go up over time. So the more tickets you get, the higher the fines go. And research shows that very few people who are homeless who get these tickets pay their fines. I would argue that less than 90% pay these fines. And the problem with that is that, well, first of all, it's not generating any income for the government by having people being ticketed. It's expensive having the police going out there and giving people these tickets when their fines aren't being paid. But another problem is that if these fines accumulate over time, and these young people, or adults for that matter, end up getting off the streets and find some sort of housing and have a job, they can have their wages garnished as a result of not paying these fines. So they could have a chunk of their paycheck money taken away to pay for these outstanding fines that they've accumulated while they're homeless. So that's another problem, which I say is heavily linked to the criminalization. And also people have ended up in jail in Ontario for not so much not paying the fines, but they've been sent to jail by judges who felt that they were not taking the law seriously and they had accumulated a large number of tickets. And for that reason, they send them to jail for maybe a 30-day period, something like that. So they're going to jail because basically they were poor, they couldn't pay their fines, so they end up incarcerated in a provincial jail because they've accumulated a number of these fines in the past. So this isn't just happening in Canada; it's happening all over North America, especially in certain states in the U.S. But there's been a lot of initiatives trying to challenge these ordinances, which is the word used in the U.S. We use the word bylaws here in Canada. But there's been a lot of pressure to try to, inform governments that, these policies really aren't really working either for the public, and they're certainly not working for those who experience homelessness.
One of the things I always think is particularly interesting or particularly absurd around these bylaws is how they are selectively applied. So if you are a person experiencing homelessness and you ask for money, you could be in violation. But if you are a charity, you can solicit for donations at, an intersection or a street corner. So if you are a person experiencing homelessness, you can't ask for money. But if you are a housed person, you can ask for money to then give to people who are experiencing homelessness.
Yes, exactly. And they actually had to amend the law not long after it was put into place to make that amendment to it. that people who are, say, collecting for charities, oh, you're allowed to do that, right? Because at first there's no distinction of who could and couldn't do that. So they had to amend the law to allow charities the ability to collect money from the public in these public places. So yeah, it is totally absurd.